Welcome to MedCrime. Today we're going to look at literature review. After defining a research problem, we need to review the literature and review the concepts and theories, and also review the previous research finding before the formulation of hypothesis. That is what we call review of literature. To define literature review, we need to understand what's the definition of literature and what is the meaning of review. Literature in research refers to the knowledge of a particular area of investigation of any discipline, and review is the organization of the knowledge of a specific area of research to show that the study would be an addition to this field. And in a complete definition of a literature review, we say it is a process of critically reviewing and documenting relevant published and unpublished research work that has been done thus far in the area under investigation. It entails the systematic identification, location, and analysis of documents containing information related to the research problem that is being investigated. We have two phases of literature review. First is the identification of all the relevant published material in the problem area. This helps you know what you're not familiar with and helps you develop ideas. And then after this one, we write the foundation of ideas into a section of the research report. This is to help us provide a summary of the thinking and research that is necessary to understand the study. What are the reasons for conducting literature review? Reviewing the research that has been done previously gives a researcher an indication of the direction to take. It is a prerequisite of planning and conducting a research to be up to date with the information in your area of interest. Literature review helps us avoid replication or duplication of the study findings. It also allows the researcher to take advantage of methods and techniques that are already available in the area of research. It also helps a researcher justify their endeavors in the field, and this basically means to provide a rationale for the study. Looking at the scope of the literature review focuses on areas which are related to the topic under study, starting with the recent publication or articles which are between 5 to 10 years. A minimum of 10 and a maximum of 20 publications suffice for the research at this level. When reviewing any literature, the research needs to assess the strengths and weakness of the past work of the subject, needs to report any inconsistent findings, identify gaps in knowledge, determine the contribution of the proposed study, and also consider the possibility of unintentional duplication. What are the objectives of review of literature? Literature review provides theories, ideas, explanations, and hypotheses which may prove useful in the formulation of a new problem. It also indicates whether the evidence already available solves the problem adequately without requiring further investigations, therefore avoiding replication or duplication. Literature review also provides the sources for hypotheses and suggests methods, procedures, sources of data, and statistical techniques which are appropriate to the solution of the problem. Literature review also locates comparative data and findings which are useful in the interpretation and discussion of the results. It helps in the developing experts and general scholarship of the investigator, and also contributes towards accurate knowledge of the evidence. What is the purpose of a review of literature? Literature review helps us discover important variables, distinguish what has been done from what needs to be done, synthesizing the available studies to have a perspective, and also determining meanings, relevance of the study, and relationship with the study and its deviation from the available studies. It also establishes the need for your research and identifies the major themes, concepts, or theories on the topic. Literature review also helps identify methodologies and research techniques which have been previously used. The two main purposes of a literature review is to put the hypothesis to be examined in the research report into its proper context, and also point the researcher to where to look for more information and readers to know what the researcher is aware of the current or related work. We can also expound these purposes to synthesizing existing research, identifying research gaps, shaping the theoretical framework, justification of the research methodologies, informing and strengthening the arguments, and also enhancing academic credibility. Then how do we get the sources for this literature review? The sources of review and related literature include textbooks, dissertations and theses, government and non-government organizational reports and conference materials, abstracts, journal articles, newspapers, monographs, indices, and periodicals. What are the functions of the review of literature? Literature review provides the conceptual framework of reference for the contemplated research. This means it should be able to present with confidence the different views of researchers, both opponents and proponents, with equal strength. Literature review also helps in the understanding of the status of research in the problem area, as it should be able to provide a basic information regarding your problem in terms of what, when, who, and how. By looking at what and when, it tells what the researchers have already done so far, and we need to know when the studies were conducted. The where aspect helps us identify the geographical area of where the studies were done, and who helps us to know who were the study participants, how were they sampled, and is the information relevant to the study population of the researcher. Another function of the literature review is to give a clue for the research approach, method, instrumentation, and data analysis. You need to be familiar with the techniques and tools and data gathering by seeking to learn what has worked and what has not. And it also spares the researchers time-consuming work for the development of techniques and tools from scratch. Literature review also provides an estimate of the probability of success of the contemplated research and the significance of usefulness of the findings, assuming the decision is made to continue. In this case, if the researchers in the past have failed to produce a conclusive research, it may be difficult to justify the study. And if a new method is being tried, there may be justification, however many researchers do continue to do the research that has already failed many times before in the hope of being the first to get it right. Then another function of a literature review is to find specific information that is required to interpret the definitions, assumptions, limitations, and hypotheses of research. The researcher will be able to use these terms that were used in the past to make the research comparable, and comparing the current thinking with one's experience helps to focus the research hypothesis. How do we conduct a literature review? We start with a general reputable sources, like a textbook, to help us get a clear picture of the problem that needs to be solved. These reputable sources helps develop the insight about the general nature of the problem, and for example, we can use a textbook like the Oxford Textbook of Medicine or the World Health Organization reports. These texts contain a must-read reports or journal articles. And then we need to search for library materials that must be systematic and thorough. After doing that, we learn to skim, read to see what the material contributes to your work or not. And once it is established to be useful, then get the reference and read it in its totality. After doing that, you take your notes systematically by being completely familiar with the most common journal articles and soak yourself in them. Then proceed to other journals which address your specific research hypothesis. In summary, we first select a topic, then search the literature, develop the argument, survey that literature, and critique the literature and write the review. Make sure that you read the journal articles that do not agree with each other. This means that we need to get both sides of the story. We also use medical dictionary because you may assume you know the meaning of the term just because it's common use. This is not really a good practice, so we need to verify your understanding of the terms. It's a library phase of your work, so you need to be familiar with how your library functions. Trial and error waste time at this point. You make your notes accurately and consistently. For example, you need to understand how the tables are, and you better write too much than too little. Then earlier writing of your report is important when everything is fresh. What do you need to guard against when writing your literature review? You need to guard against the temptation to blindly follow early investigators' viewpoint, and also some studies can be repeated. Merely listing studies without discussing their pros and cons is of no use. At least mention the results, methods, the source of data, and the year of research. And also, you arrange your studies in a chronological order to show the progress over time. We have what we call a pyramid of evidence, highlighting on what quality of evidence you need to acquire. And for example, using this pyramid, a source of information like Wikipedia lies at the lowest level of the unpraised information of the internet, and then followed by expert opinion in editorials, comments, and letters. And the research-based work ranges from the cohort of observational studies, case-control trials, double-blind control trials, that's a random control trials, and systematic review and meta-analysis of evidence-based guidelines has the highest quality of evidence in as much as its availability is minimal. What are the sins in literature review? Plagiarism is the plucking of whole sentences from someone's work and presenting them. You have to digest what you read. Copy-pasting is unforgivable in research. Writing a long introduction on a topic is also a sin, so you need to stay focused. For example, in malaria, pages on the parasite, mosquitoes, clinical signs, and remember the problem you're attempting to study. The idea of a literature review is not to tell us all you have read about a particular issue. You need to know a hell of a lot more than you write. Another sin is the lack of a flow. This means jumping from one topic to another. Literature review is not a summary of all the papers that you have read, it is a critique. And lastly, another sin is presenting only conclusions from the study. There's no where, who, why, or what. Often a sign that you have only read the abstract and have no idea of how the study was is the presentation of only conclusions. However, not long discussion or study details, poor spelling and grammar always are seen in literature review. So you need to proofread your work.